Blake, thank you so much for jumping on the AIM podcast.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me. It's gonna be fun. I know we have a bunch of new friends.
Yeah, man, we've got a bunch of really good mutual friends. My first question for you, man, is what are the kicks of the day? What are you rocking right now?
Oh man, I wish you hadn't put me on the spot like that. I'll be honest. No, I only say that because I was just golfing with one of our advisors, and so I'm wearing some Jordan 1 low golf cleats actually.
That's fire. So are you
You know,
are you have you committed?
you what was that?
Have you committed to the Jordan golf shoe? Like, do you think it's a legitimate shoe to golf in?
No, I don't. I'm definitely someone who's playing in spikes for sure. That being said, if you got other stuff that you have to do that day, I think they're the best from the standpoint that like you can wear them like normal sneakers. Like, I'll show you. Literally, this is the bottom. I don't
Oh
think
wow.
they're normal. You can totally just wear them and be fine for the day.
I love that, dude. I've seen guys rock them and I'm like, man, they look good, but can they perform? Are they actually helping your swing? But that's good to know, man, that you can do both.
Yeah, you definitely can. I mean, I squirm around a little bit. I swing that thing a little too hard, but we get around, get around, break 90 if I can.
I love it, bro. I love it. I'm super interested in that because obviously with your background in sneakers, dude, not only do we have a lot of mutual friends, but we have some very similar pieces to our story and especially how we got into business. Like I grew up I played college basketball, played basketball my whole life, and sneakers and reselling Jordans was like how I understood, like how I learned how to sell and how I learned how to flip and like negotiate. And there's so many skills. And at the time I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to make money and sell shoes. But like, I'd love to hear more about your experience and how that kind of set the stage for a lot of what you do. And then obviously we've got a lot of bigger things to unpack here in this podcast, but I think it's a cool starting spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you learn it's the easiest way to learn the absolute fundamentals of business. I don't think it teaches you a lot about business when it gets real complicated by any means, but I think it's something that you can do. Like I started reselling sneakers when I was 11 years old. There's not many businesses that you honestly would understand how to start when you're 10 or 11 years old. To buy selling it for more money is a pretty easy starting point when you're talking about something that you're interested in. Like when I was 11, like I was interested in sneakers. And so I kind of knew what stuff was worth. And so I knew that if I saw something available for sale somewhere that, was less expensive than what I know it's worth in my head somewhere else, then I knew to buy it. But at the end of the day, I mean, arbitrage is a big, big part of business. And that is really right. That is literally what sneaker reselling is. Right. And so now to me, it's so funny. Like, and I don't mean it in a bad way by any means, but to me, like when I see people talking about, let me teach you how to be an Amazon, FBA seller or whatever they're called, or, sort of the Web3 stuff. But to me, like, I don't go that far. Like a lot of these businesses to me are just evolutions or just different verticals, I suppose, of sneaker reselling. You're just reselling something, right? Like you're reselling cards, you're reselling sneakers, you're reselling Alibaba products on Amazon because you're making them seem American instead of Chinese, right? Like whatever it is, at the end of the day, you're just taking something from somewhere and you're putting it somewhere else where it's worth more money. And so, I mean, to me, the only thing that it really teaches you about business is what it takes to be profitable. I also think you learn smaller things. I think you learn about balancing volume versus, maximum profit, profitability. I think that's something that you balance when you resell shoes. A little bit, kind of forces you to network, right? You got to get in with the store managers so you can get backdoor pairs, or you got to get in with, the bulk buyers so you always have someone to sell to. I mean, and this was a different time, when I resold and I seemingly when you resold, there was no StockX, there was no GOAT, there was
Yep.
eBay, there was, the trade shows in kind of, I would call them regional trade shows. Like SneakerCon wasn't SneakerCon. SneakerCon was still back east, but it was a good starting point. I would say for sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's cool too. I got to the point, bro, I'll be honest, like I didn't want to rock stuff because I knew the value. Like once I started to know the game and learn
Yeah,
the market, I was like, dude, if I wear this pair, it's gonna look sick, but the value is gonna go down. I'm not gonna be able to resell for as much. My margin's gonna come down, and I would like play these games in my head, and it was kind of funny.
even more so now, man, because now everyone's like, oh, like there's no more. Like I remember, like I haven't heard this phrase said in years. Maybe people still say it, but VNDS, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Like
Very new
I haven't heard 2018, 2019, because back then it was like that meant something. But now it's like, can I sell it on StockX or not? Or can I sell it as brand new on Goat? Like, will it pass Goat or StockX new? Not if it's VNDS. So now it's like it's just used or it's just new. And man, you take a big old hit if you are it's like a car, right? It's like you take a Travis Scott, it's $1,100 shoe. You wear it once, it's a $650, $700 shoe. But then you wear it 15 more times, it's probably still a $650 or $700 shoe, you know?
Yeah. No doubt. I love all that, bro. Well, that's cool, man. Before we dive in, I do want to talk about one more thing. And then obviously you're doing a lot of really unique things, a lot of really interesting things with your business. Obviously, I think this conversation is going to go in the direction of investing in that side of what you do, because I think it's something that you could bring a ton of value to a lot of people talking about. But even before that, dude, I want to just appreciate and acknowledge how you praise your mom for the impact she's had on your life. Because again, that's another piece where we have a lot of similarities. I'm very close to my mom, and I don't think, I'm not going to speak for you, I know personally I'm not in the position I'm at right now or where I'm headed without her and the impact she's made. So yeah, man, I love how you talk about her, and I love how you give credit to the people that have helped you get to where you are at, so much success at your age.
No, I appreciate it. And I absolutely, I feel like I have to, right? It's like, there's really only, truthfully, I mean, you can stretch it, of course, but I would say there's really like 5 or 6 people. Like it's really only been a small number of people that I would say have had true, extremely measurable impact on my life. My mom being like first, second, and third on that list, I would also say. I mean, she's like my best friend. Like we're into a lot of the same things. Like literally, like I said, I was just golfing this morning with one of our advisors, and actually the CEO of one of the companies I'm invested in, Hubi, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point. And today, obviously, Amazon and Apple earnings came out, and those are some big holdings for us. And so she's calling me up on the phone, and earnings are up. We beat on earnings, and we're talking about investments. Like I don't think a lot of people have that kind of relationship with their mom, and I definitely consider myself super fortunate to have that. Because and that's the thing too. I mean, even when it's less positive, and like whatever it is, it's like we go through a lot of the same things. We become really, really good friends. I think that's something that naturally happens when you go from kind of being raised with everything to all of a sudden it's like you and your single mom and you're kind of just figuring out what you're going to do. Like all of a sudden you go from being that parent, I think, stops looking at you as just their 10 or 11-year-old kid and kind of starts looking at you like it's kind of my teammate. It's kind of the only person who for sure, no matter what happens here on out, is going to always be there. And on top of that, they kind of have that heightened sense of like your parent, right? Like if nothing else, you want to be able to provide for your kids and teach your kids and be proud of your kids. Yeah, I mean, I give my mom a lot of credit. Like she made a lot of sacrifices in her life to, teach me the things that she's taught me and put me in a position to be successful. And yeah, I mean, it's a really, really cool thing to have. I mean, if nothing else, like, especially like now, as I'm seeing my friends have kids, I'm like, man, like I definitely don't want a kid right now. But at the same time, like, and I wish my mom had me when she was 21. My mom is a little bit of an older parent. She had me when she was 37. And so like, I'm like, man, like I wish my mom was like 45 right now. Cause I wish she was, going to be there for, the large majority of my life. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, we're beyond close.
Dude, that's so cool. I love that. I was thinking about this on a run the other day, and it's cool. You get into business, whatever you do. Like I played sports. Now I'm trying to getting into business and growing that. But like you have these days where, whether it's whatever you're doing, and sometimes you don't feel like getting after, you don't feel like doing it, or there's things that come up and it's just a challenge. And then, what I think about a lot is like, man, I need to put in perspective, like the people that made sacrifices for me to get to this point, to have these problems, you know what I mean? Like things that come up that I see as like struggle or problems. I'm like, dude, the motivation that I have to keep going just based off just my mom alone, it really puts things in a perspective. And I think that's like the coolest part about enjoying the process of where you're headed. And obviously there's going to be bumps in the road, but like knowing that there's people behind you in your corner that support you, believe in you, and that have given up so much to allow you to be on that path. It just, I like to just be aware of that, just because it's so important, and it's helped me a lot. Just keep pushing through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, it's a mindset thing too. I mean, like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like I was just in Mykonos about a month ago, and I land there, and it's a brutal flight. It's a brutal flight from Las Vegas. It took about 18, 19 hours to get there. And so we finally get there, We're all so excited. I go with a group of my good friends, and bags are lost. I don't get my. They say, "Oh, you're gonna have it tomorrow morning. Go buy what you need. The airline reimburse you, whatever." Okay, cool. Not a big deal. I'm in Mykonos, so what am I going to complain about, right? All back. Your suitcase is going to be here in 4 days, and I'm like, I'm only here for 7 days, and I'm like, truthfully, and I hate to even admit it because you're listening to this story, you probably already know where I'm going with this, but it's like I was really like honestly pissed. Like I was like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Like it's a really expensive trip. I'm definitely someone who's really into fashion. So I'm like, I honestly really do care about what I was going to wear. So the fact that I have none of my clothes and now I've got to go spend, extra money to go, load up on now 4 or 5 days worth of stuff. And I'm only going to get my suitcase with 2 days to spare. I'm hot. And I'm sitting there and literally I'll paint the scene for you. I mean, we're sitting there and we got probably the nicest single villa in all of Mykonos. A beautiful 2-bedroom villa, overlooks everything, right on the water. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better scene, with my best friends. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm actually upset right now. And as soon as that actually hit me, within 5 minutes, I was back to being super happy. Honestly, all my friends were still pissed off because all of our suitcase got lost. And I'm like, what are we mad about? Look around. Like, what are we mad about? Okay, so we're going to wear some random, Greek clothes instead of what we brought to wear. So what? We're going to have just as much fun and everything's going to be the exact same. So that was an interesting mindset thing for me. And then it really clicked for me when the second to last day of the trip, we're riding around Vespas, and I happened to get the one freaking Vespa in all of Greece and probably all of Europe that was on literally the last use of its kickstand life. And I swipe the kickstand snaps off, Vespa smacks my foot, breaks my foot right then and there on the spot. 1 day left in my trip, I break my foot. And again, same thing. I'm like, again, very pissed. I mean, it's not even pissed. It's obviously like my foot is like now 3 feet. You know what I mean? Like I'm not happy. And then I think to myself, you know what? My foot's broken. Done deal. You think, right? It's a sunk cost, if you will, right? Foot's already broken no matter how I feel about it. So what am I going to do? Well, when I'm about to have to deal with a broken foot at home with work and with office and with everything else, right now I got to deal with a broken foot on the beach. What the heck? So I asked the hotel if there's anything they could do, and they were nice enough. They literally golf carted me onto the beach, and I sat there icing my foot on a beach chair. And I was thinking to myself, in that moment, it really taught me something. That there's literally absolutely no reason to not figure out how to make a bad situation a positive situation. Granted, I'm sure there's many stories of many people with way worse situations than what I just described to you. But for me in my life, that was a frustrating situation. It sucks breaking your foot in a country with no hospitals. But nonetheless, it is what it is. I'm fine now. And I made sure that last day of the trip, I still enjoyed as much as I could. And it was a really unique learning experience for me.
That's why I say you can't footwear. That's the story.
Yeah, that's why. Right. Exactly. There you go.
No, in all seriousness, I love that. I think that's super important. And honestly, again, like I think there's a lot of takeaways from that moment and that mindset that you're describing that you can apply directly to business and the things you deal with day in and day out as not only a business owner, but as an investor. So that's really cool. Let's talk a little bit about, obviously I don't want to go super deep because you've got so many interesting characteristics and elements to your business, but give me just a little bit of an overview of kind of what you do now. And then obviously I want to transition this in more into the investing side of things, but I think it's important to kind of understand what you're doing with Enclave and Key and how that plays a role in kind of what you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, on its face, we're a full service marketing agency, everything from influencer work, PR, ad spend, content creation, social management, events, right? Like you name it, that's like quite literally what Enclave does. What's exciting to me about what Enclave does is we've essentially created a business where we're at the nucleus of the world's best and brightest, whether you're running a brand, whether you're, talent, whether you're a pro athlete, whatever you are, there's about 4,000 or 5,000 people that I think are directly impacting what Enclave stands for, which is, like I said, it's this nucleus of opportunity. And so what that leads to is, I become an angel investor in a lot of things because all these fantastic small business owners and larger business owners become friends, and all of a sudden they raise money, and it's like you have the opportunity to get in, right? It becomes a unique opportunity to learn a lot about everything. And so we've assembled like what I would consider to be a pretty young team holistically. We're a larger team, I would say, for a business of our nature. But I would say the average age here is probably 24 to 26. I mean, we're a pretty young group of scrappy, just highly motivated young folks. And I think that I think that makes a lot of sense for us too, just because I'm also 22 and run the company. And so um, I do understand it'd probably be a barrier, honestly, in me managing someone who is, let's say, in their 50s, just off of the, kind of constructs that come with age in our society. And then kind of even on top of that as well. I mean, it's funny. I mean, you look at our client list and you think this doesn't make any sense. Why the hell does a group like this have all these top clients? And honestly, the biggest reason is because what we do, I honestly believe the average, and I'm not talking about Enclave personnel, I'm talking about just in general, the average 24-year-old understands what we do better than probably the marketing expert who's 55, in terms of, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm not going to name a company because I don't mean to put this person on the spot, but one of our truly big clients has this fantastically successful CMO, right? The CMO was previously CMO at a company that went public, and a second company after that sold for 9 figures. Like, the guy's really made his way around, and is probably one of the brightest people I've ever met in terms of ad spend. But when it comes time to talk about what we do with this particular company, which is their influencer spend, he's like, yeah, like, this is our influencer budget. Like, you guys do it. I kind of don't care. And it's interesting to me just from the standpoint that it's like, we do great work with them. They've been a client for a long time, whatever. But it's like, man, like, this is someone who I would consider to be a marketing expert of marketing experts. And this is really not their space. It's the same way that I feel like a lot of people feel right now about Web3. It's like, if you didn't grow up in that, you either have to make a decision that you care enough about what's happening to learn about it, or you can say, I don't care about this, and this is not going to interest me. I'm not going to invest here, and I'm not going to spend the time learning. But that's kind of where we fit in on the marketing side. Like, not a lot of people actually, I think, understand what we do, which is why we've become a pretty sought after agency and get to work with some of the cool folks that we do.
No doubt. How important is influencer marketing right now for a business to think about?
That's a loaded question, because here's what I would say. I would say most businesses right now, if I had to project, are 100%, not 99, but 100% losing money on influencer marketing. Because if you're doing what worked in 2017, which is like paying influencers to post something, and that's the extent of what you're doing on the influencer side, you've honestly got no chance. How do you incorporate influencers, not even just in the context of being brand ambassadors, but if you want to activate their audience correctly, come up with a cool experiential concept that is really going to get them moving around, right? Like, throw an event and have them support the event, right? Use their name and likeness to have larger media outlets whose audiences are far larger and far farther reaching than theirs, and have that, amplify what they're doing. If you're the brand, like, instead of maybe just having them post about, let's say you're a water bottle, right? Instead of sending the product to influencer A and having them hold up your bottle and, hey, go buy this bottle, collaborate with that influencer, put their name and face on it, and now it's your product, in collaboration with that talent, and now you'll start to see those conversions. So I think influencer marketing is something that every brand should be doing, specifically apps, CPG products, things like that, with the caveat of, you need to do it creatively. If you're just writing these people a check, like, you're probably not going to ever see that money again, because now you're talking about these influencers with 250,000 followers that are commanding thousands of dollars to do, a post. If it starts and stops with that post, you're probably not recouping that, a couple $1,000 investment in them. And that's just the truth about it.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that's where, even in just conversation with brands that, I've met or come across, it's like the actual ROI on, paying you $2,000 to post this on Instagram is, like you said, it's a loaded question, because there's a lot of things that play there. I think what brands sometimes don't necessarily understand is how much awareness they can get from doing something like you're saying, something in a creative aspect. So that is super interesting that you bring that point, because I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right? Like, you think about it this way, right? Like, the best commercials ever that you watch are the Super Bowl commercials, because there's this expectation that they're going to be more creative, more funny, and have bigger celebrities in them. So that it's the one time a year that you're like super, super intentionally dialed into ads, right? Because the expectation is that this is going to be worth seeing. The creative is going to be unbelievably strong. The people involved are going to be unbelievably strong, and the brands involved are going to be unbelievably strong. That is the perfect formula for influencer marketing. But it's like, people only, I mean, obviously not in our business, but I feel like what I see happening a lot is a lot of brands that feel like, yeah, that's what we do for Super Bowl commercials. But then when it comes time to run a $10,000 ad on your own business, you're like, all right, that picture's good. And it's like, what just happened? Like, you just saw what it takes. I mean, I'm not saying spend $2.5 million on Super Bowl commercial like these companies do, but you want to make sure that it has that kind of same effect. Ideally, right? That's what it takes for a successful ad.
100%, man. I love that. So that's really helpful, man. And I appreciate you sharing that about, what you guys do. And it's interesting to kind of look into and look under the hood at your business and how you're so different from a lot of other traditional marketing companies. You talk about the different clients you have coming into the door. You're able to help them, provide them a lot of value. And then on the flip side, they're raising money and looking for investors. So let's navigate into that conversation. I'd love to pick your brain about that and really get into it. What was your first investment that you feel comfortable talking about, and how did kind of that come about?
Oh man. I probably can't talk about my first investment publicly. I definitely share with you off camera. But one of my very early ones, I think I might have been in one or two other things before this. Look, honestly, my early investments were a lot smaller, and I pretty much lost on all of them. Like, I would write, 5 and 10K checks into different things. And honestly, this is the true story, right? So growing up, I loved the show Shark Tank, and it's like, okay, like this is I learned a lot of business just watching Shark Tank and watching those negotiations, the way they chop it up and everything like that. And so I'm like, okay, like this is interesting, like, because I was raised by a mom who's an options trader, and so I had really only seen kind of one side of investing, right? And then I had friends that got into real estate, and I had friends that have gotten into Web3, and I've gotten all these, I've seen all these different things. But for me, I just thought Shark Tank was cool. And so I have done options trading, and I have done, played the stock market, if you will, for 10 years. I mean, that is still obviously where like the bulk of my, assets are and whatnot, but have way more fun with angel investing. And so early on, I jumped into a project. It was a fun story, but basically I met this guy, Jordan Greenfield, who I'll tell it to you like this. We were going to do some marketing work for a company that he has his hand in. That's not even his major venture. It was a skincare company called Alotiva. And we get on the call to discuss having Enclave work with them in some sort of smaller kind of campaign capacity, just to get our feet wet. And it was actually a project that an intern at the time was working on, and they reached out to this company, and I was kind of taking the more or less final call, if you will. And they said, "Oh, we're based in Vegas." Really? Me too. It's noisy where you are, though. Yeah, we're golfing. It's windy. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'm a member at TPC. I'll take you guys out tomorrow. Let's talk about this on the course instead, and fuck this phone call. And they're like, all right, all right, great. So next day we meet him on the course. He says to me, he says, "What do you want to do?" And I told him what we're doing. He says, "How much does it cost?" And it was a pretty small campaign. He says, "I'll tell you what," literally on the first tee box, he says, "All right, we're going to do the deal, but I want to tell you about what I'm really working on." Because he, I guess, found me interesting for whatever reason. I don't know. So he spends a whole round telling me all about Hoobie, which is this link in bio tool that's going to take on Linktree and all this. And he's telling me, 50 Cent this, David Dobrik this, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, cool. So let me see it. And he's like, well, it's not fully done yet. And these people are good friends of mine. They kind of owe me favors, but it's not done yet. I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, but like, man, this guy talks well, and not in like a bullshit salesy way. Like, he just, I believe, really gets it, And so I said, "I'll tell you what." Says, "You guys are finishing raising some money right now. I can't help you finish raising. I'm open to maybe putting a check in, but I want to bring some of my friends in on this deal that I think could be helpful for you. It's a celebrity-based company, so let me bring you some celebrities, see what they think." This is on Tuesday. So Friday night, we go do dinner. Same week, knowing this guy for 72 hours. We do this dinner. I think the dinner goes well. I ask I brought a handful of NFL guys to the dinner. I said, "What do you think?" "Yeah, it's cool, whatever. We're all going to pass," is ultimately what they all decided. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Screw it. Like, I'm going to do it. And I wrote the check and agreed to be an advisor to them. And that was about 2 years ago. Since then, I mean, they've been offered, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it, but they've been offered 9 figures for their business. The business has grown tremendously. I was in on the pre-seed round, or seed round or whatever, like friends and family, whatever you want to call it, the earliest round. And now today we've got Jeff Bezos, we've got The Rock, we've got Tom Brady, Gronkowski. I mean, J Balvin. I mean, tons and tons and tons of these top celebrities and brands are using our product, and it's cool. I mean, it's one of those things where if I'm going to angel invest in something, I know that I'm smacking my name onto it, along with probably a large commitment of my time in the context of not being involved with Enclave directly. And so for me, I'm very intentional about it. I don't honestly strictly invest for the sake of making money, as weird as that sounds. Like, the biggest reason I invested in Hubi is because Jordan convinced me, and not literally convinced me, but just in the way that he spoke and talked about his business and talked about himself and his friends. I was convinced that, and I'll be honest, like I feel like it's fine saying it publicly since it's my own money. Like, I put $25,000 into that business, and I was 19 years old at the time. It was a lot of money for me, but I did it anyways. And I thought to myself, if nothing else, I'm paying $25,000 to be in a room with this guy, and he's clearly in the room with a lot of other folks that I want to be in. And if nothing else, that's what I'm paying to participate in his world. And if it comes back in the form of being a successful investment, great. Also, it's a company that I think that our company's geared very well to be super helpful for, right? Like, we obviously can get their link in bio tool put in a lot of celebrities' link in bios, which we have done at this point. And so, and it's been a ton of fun, right? Like, I can say 1,000,000% that regardless of whatever comes when they cash out, which they are going to, but whatever comes from that, I don't care. Like, I can say that if I get a $10 million check from them, which I don't think I will, I think I'll get a good check, but not 10 million bucks. It's not worth what Jordan has done for me in my life and what their team has done. I mean, they've become like very, very close friends. And it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, if you're a part of Enclave, if you're a client, if you're an employee, you're part of this world, right? And I love our world. We've created a great world. Like I said, I really feel like we position ourselves as the nucleus of this world, that in the context of ours. But Jordan's done the same thing with Hubi. Jordan is a nucleus of his own world, and I like his world. And so I want to be a part of it. And so when I invest, I look almost strictly at the entrepreneur behind it. I don't even, truthfully, and like I know that I'm opening the floodgates to probably get sent a whole bunch of honestly terrible businesses by saying this, but I don't even look at financials when I invest, truthfully. I mean, I'll usually ask, you know, but like, honestly, like, I wouldn't even know what I'm looking at. We have finance guys here. I'm not a finance guy. I didn't go to school for finance. I can't sit there and read these, you know, 18 column wide, 8,000 column deep, or 8,000 row deep financial reports. It means nothing to me. I don't care. You're either going to hit a home run angel investing, or you're probably going to lose all your money. And there's not really much in between, right? Like, when you angel invest, you get your money back in the event of an exit, in the event of them going public, and maybe in between rounds, depending on the way that your investment's structured. That's it. So no matter what, the business has to grow by a relatively substantial multiple for you to have any sort of chance at getting your money back. That being said, it's an exciting diversification tool for my portfolio as well that I've grown to like. I love getting pitched on businesses. Now I'm writing more and more checks just because, you know, life allows for that, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I'm always going to do, but within reason, for sure. And I would caution people that angel invest as well. Like, you need to be in the right circles to do it well. You know, like, angel investing in your boy's company, truthfully, is probably not going to make any money ever, versus like investing in this guy who's already done X, Y, and Z and now started this new venture and brought on this great group and had great VC behind them. Like, that is what it takes for these angel investments to be successful, right? And so they've got to have something there. Granted, I've actually come in earlier than these things have happened in some cases, but I'm coming in because I'm like, you guys are going to be those kinds of people. You guys are going to have this happen for you. You guys are going to get the great VC behind you, the great angels, you know, the great revenues and all that stuff, right? And so if I don't feel like the writing's on the wall for that, like, I will admit, and I'm not going to name those either, I feel bad, but I will say I've written 2 checks that are more out of respect to a relationship that I had, and they were both losers. They were total losers. Like, I've already written them off as losses, but it's one of those things. It's like, look, I'm happy to support business, you know, and I'm happy to try and help, but ultimately you need to be a Jordan Greenfield. You need to be, you know, an Adam Lynn. You need to be, and these are guys that some listeners may know. Jordan is founder of Hubi. Adam Lynn is a fantastic founder I've gotten to know recently. He's a founder and CEO of Breakaway Music Festival. It's a nationwide music festival, pretty big company there. I mean, these are guys that are in their early 30s. They are dynamite entrepreneurs. They will not fail, even if their business has ups and downs, whatever, recession. I mean, you can throw anything at them, they will be successful, and so I love going to bat with those guys. I mean, it's just not to ramble on too much, but I think it's a fantastic insight that I just had this conversation with my mom like last week. She says, we're a little overweight in some of the positions that we have when you look at it on its face, right? Like, for example, like take just a random stock, like say it was Apple, right? Like we have too much Apple, right? And I think to myself, it's a great quote. She goes, I said, it's on one hand, you don't want to have too many eggs in one basket, but on the other hand, just watch the damn basket. Is literally what I said to her. I said, why not have all your eggs in a winning basket? That's all you really need to do, right? And so, like, at the end of the day, I look at people like Adam Lynn and Jordan and even like someone like you, Jordan McCabe, a whole handful of mutual friends that we have. Like, at the end of the day, these people are just winners. You know what I mean? And I want to go into business with winners the same way that people look at stocks like Apple as winners. They both are winners.
That's honestly incredible, dude. And the coolest thing, the most interesting thing that I pull out of that is the theme that, like, obviously there's a monetary component. People don't invest. Well, most people don't invest to lose the money. I'll just put that out there. But the way you really unpack that and talk about the value that you get from the relationship, the learnings, how it applies to your business and what you're trying to create. Like, I think that's the thing that I'm most interested in, because that's what most people aren't talking about. So with that, you talk about Jordan as an example. We can use him if you'd like, but what exactly are the qualities you're looking for in an entrepreneur, someone that's heading up a young startup, for you to truly get behind them and believe in them? Because you talk about that's a really important piece of the puzzle. What are the characteristics, qualities that you really need to see be proven?
So I have a really long yet probably odd set of things that I look for when I invest. And honestly, I'm not sure that I would recommend other people do it. I'm happy to share what they are, but I don't necessarily recommend that other people do this, because I think that if you're not in the appropriate circles, this advice will tee you up to lose your ass. And so I just want to preface that.
It's not financial advice.
No, absolutely not. But what I will say was, like, I just look at what am I interested in? What do I like? What do I, right? Like, what kind of people do I want? And so one thing I will say is, like, I like CEOs and founders, or, whoever's running the show. I don't care what their title is, but whoever's running the show, I like to be extroverted in a sense. I want them to be like almost like really high quality salespeople, not in the sense that they're trying to create a transaction with you, but they're unbelievable marketers and just talkers, if you will, about their own business, right? Like, if you sit there for 30 minutes with Jordan and let him just ramble on about Hubi, like, you'll be convinced that he created the greatest things in sliced bread, and it's a great company, but it's a great company, right? But he'd have you convinced of that because that's how Jordan is. That's how Adam is. That's how Beam's another one I would want to shine light on from Tradeblock. I mean, they're the whole Tradeblock team, the whole Hubi team, the whole Breakaway team. That's the thing too. They've got great teams and they've got small teams. I don't like when people overhire. I think that's just an indication that you don't really know what you're doing, and you're hoping that you can hire people that will help you know what you're doing, which means that when you raise the money, you were probably a good fundraiser, but you're not honestly a great CEO, which kind of freaks me out. Like, at the end of the day, I also know that Jordan is the biggest Hubi expert in the world. Beams is the greatest Tradeblock expert in the world, right? Like, these people are experts in their own business, and so, like, from that perspective, I look at, like I said, I look at people that I think are winners. I look at products that I think have a genuine need and or are in an industry where there needs to be something new. Like, I looked at Linktree, and it's like, Linktree to me is a shit product. It's like, yeah, it's great. Like, it links your other socials, but it looks like crap. There's nothing to customize. There's no way to actually track the data within the individual links. Like, you're literally just paying for a link tree, which is like, that's their brand, and they have a great business. They have a way bigger business than Hubi. But to me, that space needed something new. It needed a facelift, and Hubi was that facelift. So the product itself was strong, right? If it's an app or a product like that, the product's got to be strong. If it's a CPG product, it's got to taste better than everything else, or whatever, right? Like, I look at, honestly, I kind of don't care what the industry is. I looked at vegan pancakes one time. And I almost invested. I really did. I didn't end up doing it, but I got very, very, very close to doing it. It was one of the closest times I've ever been to making an investment without actually doing it in my life. I like things that I know that I can help grow as well, because I'm never going to invest if I can't have some sort of micro role. Not a paid role by any means. I've never taken any sort of paid role from the company that I've invested in. But when I say role, can I get a bunch of celebrities using the Hoobie product? Can I get a bunch of the top sneaker YouTubers promoting Tradeblock, right, which is a sneaker-based product? Can I do something to help? Because in essence, that protects my investment. And so the answer more often than not needs to be yes for that. Another thing for me is there's a lot, just truthfully, more things that I immediately will say no to versus things that I look for to say yes, if that makes sense. Like give you a perfect example, and I feel bad saying it because I'm sure, and I don't mean it to offend anybody, but to me, if you approach me with Web3 or NFT, I'm at the point now where I've told our whole team, I'm always happy to join calls with you, talk to, clients, whatever it may be. Do not ever put me on the phone with someone who's doing NFT or Web3. They're smart people, whatever. I honestly, I hate it. I don't care to learn more than I already know about it. I think 9 out of 10 people are trying to scam you. I think, and I think the other chunk of people aren't trying to scam you, but they will ultimately more or less end up scamming you, because 99% of this actually make money over a 3 to 5 year period. That's the thing too. I want long-term winners. I don't want a winner for 6 months. If I want a winner for 6 months, I'm going to put my money in the stock market, because then there's no chance of the going to zero like there is with an angel investment. So if I'm not trying to hit a longer-term win, to me, it's kind of a waste of time in putting my relatively limited angel dollars into. But yeah, I think, you know what, actually, the last thing that I would say as well is like I said, not only someone who markets what they're doing well, but has a really extensive network. I've definitely come to be one of those people that is over the top bought into the whole, your network is your net worth, sort of soundbite, if you will. Because I've seen it firsthand. I'll give you a perfect example. Someone like their advisor, the guy I was golfing with today, is a guy named Matt Fogg. He started this fantastic agency called The Basic Agency. They did all the UI UX for the biggest of the big. They did YouTube, G Suite, sneakers app, Starbucks. The list goes on. The guy just sold his company for ridiculous money. You can look it up. I don't want to be the one to say it, but you take a guy like that, and it's a 38-year-old guy who knows everybody. You know what I mean? He's so normal, but at the same time, if I was building an app right now, I'd want Matt doing it, because he's the best at it. He builds winners. He's built the biggest winner, Apple Music, Spotify. Those were all things that his agency did. And it's that's the guy who wins. So do I want to get really good at coding, or do I want to hire someone who's really good? No, I want to go to the best. I want to go to the person who's got the network to get it done. And clearly this guy has that more than anybody. So he and I become great friends, and I feel very lucky to get some advice from him and stuff like that. But that's the kind of, for me, a very perfect example of what I look for. If he was raising money, I would not ask him for his financials, and I would give him a check. I don't know that I could give him a big enough check to be able to jump in, but besides the point, I'd be Matt is a winner. I would give him money. I would invest in Matt. I look at these human beings individually the same way that I look at a blue chip stock. You guys are going to be winners just like they are.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. The piece throughout the list of the way that you want to be involved in the process of some degree, I think that's super interesting, because a lot of people, in the stock market, for example, the big difference is you're not going to likely make a huge difference in what happens, the outcome of the business. But with this is very different. You obviously can pull in your network, you can do different things, help them high level, advise, consult, whatever that looks like. When a company comes to you and says, Blake, invest in us for XYZ, why do you think your capital is more valuable than most others? What value do you think you bring to that deal and makes you such a unique angel investor?
What's so interesting? I'll say this first. I've actually never invested in a company that has come to me and asked me to invest. I've only ever invested in the way you asked it actually got me thinking. That's when I realized that outside of the two losers that I did more out of respect to the friendships that I had, loser companies, not people, but yeah, no, it's maybe ask it a little bit differently. That's like, I don't even know where to go with that. It's like, so like, I would be a
Essentially,
little answer with that.
yeah, no, essentially, I think what's valuable for, I'd love to hear you unpack if you're comfortable, is like when you
Yeah.
go into a deal, an angel deal, and you invest in this in a startup, beyond just your financial capital that you're putting into the deal, what value do you bring to help the business grow to ensure that that's a good investment of your time, resources, energy, finances?
Yeah. Okay. So I can definitely go through. I mean, I would say the first thing is, you know what, and it's something that I actually talk a lot about, which is like in the context of college, is like the NIL space. To me, I actually look at myself as an investor similarly from the standpoint that like, if I'm investing in something that I know my name and likeness is going to be attached to this thing forever, and I don't want that to be an embarrassment. I want that to be a win, and I want that to be something that I more or less can add to my resume, if you will, or just kind of reputation, I suppose. So I think a lot about what will investing in this particular thing do to my reputation, because I kind of know what it will do on the back end of their reputation. I mean, first of all, before I even get into myself, like just off the bat, like my last name alone, I know bears a pretty substantial amount of weight, especially when you're talking about that community. You know, coming from a family that includes, you know, one of the 100 greatest entrepreneurs of all time. Like if you know, I mean, in most negotiations, if you will. And so, you know, from that perspective, I don't want to be, I don't want to lack the proper care, if you will, in associating even just the last name with something, never mind my name. Right. And then like kind of going a little bit deeper, I look at it like, we're a marketing agency, and there's no way in the world that you have a business that doesn't include some aspect of marketing. If you're B2B, D2C, consumer package, I don't care what you are, you have an element of marketing. And I really do believe that I think we've already built the foundation for it. And I think if we have this conversation again in 5 years, like I really do believe like Enclave will be the greatest marketing agency on the planet. I think we're going to cater to the biggest of the big clients. I think that we're going to have the most creative campaigns that you've seen, you know, publicly. Like I really do believe that we are going to be the best. And so even right now, I think we are a beyond helpful tool for companies, especially those that are really trying to, in a 12-month period, dramatically change their valuation. If they're, you know, one of those companies that wants to grow really quickly, like we're not a mom and pop kind of cater, you know, we don't really cater to the mom and pops. The world, we cater to, you know, tech companies and products and some, there's different things that have like these kind of pretty rapid trajectories and tend to do lots of raising and things like that. And so I think we could be helpful there. Another thing that I think about when I invest is, you know, I pretty much bring people in with me on every deal that I do. It's usually different people that it makes sense for them. But, you know, Sanjay and Evan Sharma are a perfect example of people that I brought in on a good handful of deals now. Evan is a 19-year-old artist out of Canada, but his paintings sell for 50,000 plus, like all day long. The kid is an unbelievable legend. I mean, his father is a really, really successful ed tech founder. And so, and they've been some of my closest friends and clients, or whatever you want to call them, for the last 5 years. And so a lot of times now, I've been a consultant for them for the last 5 years. And so now, I mean, every time we chat and, hey, I might invest in this. Oh, can you introduce us? And they end up coming in on a ton of deals with us. So much so that we've created an SPV together. Then now we go in on a lot of deals together. But then, you know, I've Andre Drummond, I brought into Hubi, and there's guys I brought into Tradeblock. And, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, if I'm going to invest, I know that I'm going to bring that company a lot more money than my own check, a lot more value than what the dollars represent. And ultimately, they're also going to be able to use those things for their own positioning to do more themselves. Because at the end of the day, like I'm still an investor, right? Like I'm not investing to become CMO. I'm investing to kind of help, and then, you know, you still got to run with it and you know, raise more money and grow and sell and do whatever it is that you're going to do. And that's got to more or less be separate from me. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I look at. I look at the risk. I mean, I look at, when I talk about, I don't look at the finance. I don't look at the finance because I don't think they matter when you're angel investing, right? Like if I was looking at Hubi, when I invested, they were a zero revenue business. So how would I invest at any valuation? 5x multiple of zero is still zero. So if I care about the finances, I'm never going to invest in anything early. And at the same time, I don't have enough money to invest in things late stage. So I've got to be willing to take these to me, what I call calculated gambles. So I'll give you an example with Breakaway, right? That was my most recent investment. And it was probably one of the larger investments ever made before. But I looked at it, I go, okay, the revenues are great, cool. That's not super exciting to me because their revenues have to grow anyways. And if they don't, I already lost the investment. So who cares what their revenues are today? Who's involved? CEO and president of Goldman Sachs, founder of Honey that sold for $4.5 billion, a founder of Masterclass, Andre Drummond, who I invest with, and I trust his reputation a lot, right? And the list just goes on and on and on. I'm like, how the heck would this thing fail? And if it does, so be it. So be it. I can accept that. But honestly, if over the next 3 years I get the opportunity to network with those other folks that they've gotten to invest, and I have Enclave do some work for them that, makes sense for them. And, this, that, and the third, if I lose my cash, I lose my cash. But to me, I look at it like the other neat thing is you really only need one major home run when it comes to angel investing. And that's it. You're totally done. I'm fortunate to have already had one major home run in my life that exited and everything like that. And so for me, I look at it like I'm free rolling probably the next 10 years of my life of angel investing. But at the same time, I'm really respectful to every dollar. It's hard to earn money. We've been in business now a little over 3.5 years. We're coming up on 4 years now as an agency. I didn't even pay myself for the first 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things where like, I have so much respect for all the money that I've worked hard earning. Like, I'm not punting it just to get in the room, but I'm willing to risk it. And if I lose it, I lose it, but I don't think I will. And in the interim process, I'm meeting so many great people. I'm learning so much about business. I'm being forced to learn things, which I think is a big thing that people don't talk enough about when it comes to angel investing. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I let a bunch of our team kind of come in on the Breakaway deal as well. And it's like, I see the learning experience for them in the context. They're like, literally as simple as like, what's an SPV? Like, what do you look at when it comes to investing? And just kind of hearing their questions, it's like, that's why it makes so much sense for them, right? Like, if they believe that's a good use of their own funds, which is not something that I would ever encourage them. But if they already make that assessment for themselves, just forcing that conversation, they're learning what they probably wouldn't learn in 4 years of business school. They're learning in the context of a 25-minute conversation, because now they're doing it, and they're doing it for real. They're doing it with the world's best and brightest. They're not just talking about it in the context of a fucking worksheet or some bullshit that they give you in college. And so I think from that perspective, I look at it as the most rewarding part of my investing style, from a standpoint that, like, I have the most fun with it and I learn the most. I mean, it's not that fun investing in Apple, but I do it. It's not fun investing in any stock. I mean, I don't know why I keep zeroing in on Apple, but it's one of those, like, it's what you do, and you should. But real estate, you do it and you should. But angels fun. The Shark Tank kind of shit. Like, I just love that.
No doubt. Have you seen real changes or benefits in your business from the investments you've made throughout the years?
Yeah, I think, honestly, one thing that I never did it for this. I never anticipated it. And honestly, it's something I've really seen a lot of in the last 6 months. And it's kind of why I'm even taking the time creating content now and doing all of that, is like, I feel like me being an angel investor is making both myself on a personal kind of CEO side, as well as the agency as a whole. Like, I think we get taken a lot more seriously, because it's one of those things that you definitely don't expect. And then I think also, like, when you hear me talk about it and how thoughtful I am about the investments that we make and stuff, I think it shocks a lot of people, especially people that are older than me, and would look at it like, oh, this is a 22-year-old dropout. Like, the fuck does he know about business? And so I think that, from that perspective, I think it becomes an interesting, piece of conversation. I think another thing that's interesting is, companies will reach out to us. Hey, like, we kind of want you to invest because we know what that investment check, kind of comes with, and blah, blah, blah. And so now it's kind of like, it's weirdly become this sort of lead gen tool for us, but like, just based on reputation. It's not me being like, hey, I'll invest in your company, and then like pulling the rug out from under you and being like, okay, I'm not investing, but I'll do your marketing and please be a client. But literally just like brands being like, reaching out and, I want you to invest. And a lot of times I'll be like, this is not investable for me. And truthfully, there are businesses that I think I pass on winners. I think that's something that I also don't talk enough about that I'd share is like, I pass on business that I'm like, I know for a fact you're going to hit home run, but I have no desire to do business with you in this capacity from the standpoint that you're way too busy to probably even take my calls. My cash is so insignificant to you that I know 2 years from now, when you get to the point that I should be super excited, you're going to look at me as someone who's diluting your cap table and you're going to want me out. Like, I just look at it like, this isn't going to be fun for me. The angel investing thing is meant to be fun for me. You know, like truthfully, in my whole life, I've definitely spent less than $500,000 on angel investing, which is still a ton of money. But like at the same time, like it's an amount of money that truthfully, when you're talking about an 80-year period, is not going to change anything. If I had $500,000 and I had to make that last the day that I died, my best hope is exactly what I did with it, which is angel investing, because no matter what, it wouldn't work, right? Yeah. So from perspective, I'm happy with where the money's gone. And I love, indirectly, it's almost responsible for the entirety of our business from the standpoint that like, I started this thing when I was 18 years old. I was fresh off YouTube. Like, I don't feel like I knew a whole lot. Like I would do podcasts and I would talk about sneakers and they'd ask me about business. And I felt like I had a good grasp myself, but I didn't even know how to talk about it because I didn't know phrases. I didn't know words. I mean, I like literally like as simple as like, I remember being on calls like what ROI, like what? Like, but like, I understand the concept the second it's explained, but like, I still remember asking that shit, like starting this business. And so now when I think about where I'm at, it's the experience that's like, I've gone through my own college is how I tell people. I the last 4 years, all my friends were in college. All my friends graduated this past May. I spent 4 years in the College of Enclave, in the College of the Real World, in the College of Angel Investing, in the College of Hubi and Tradeblock and mediakits and Breakaway and all these other companies that I'm a part of, and it's been a great college experience for me. And the better part of it is I haven't racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debts. I've probably made hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. And yeah, I suppose you could, depending on how far you stretch it, it's responsible for almost all of Enclave, because at the end of the day, I do feel like I have a pretty substantial chunk in what should be looked at for why is Enclave at where it's at now. Now we're a bigger team, but first 2.5 out of the 4 years almost we've been in business, there was 6 or less people. You know what I mean? So building that foundation was largely like myself, my business partner Brock, my business partner Hayes, and a couple other the early day one employees, sort of thing that are now partners as well. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, this is the Enclave. The Enclave literally means a group that's different in nature than those surrounding it for one reason or another. I also happen to have grown up at 1717 Enclave Court. And so the word just means a whole lot to me. And that's why, the business is what it is. But if not for angel investing, I would say that we would be 12 months behind where we are right now. But at the same time, what we've done in the last 12 months is why Enclave is now a known name in this space versus like you'd never heard of it 12 months ago. You never heard of me 12 months ago, or maybe you did in the context of a YouTuber, but that's it. Now there's so many more layers to it because of the work we've done. And yeah, man, a lot of it's definitely due to the knowledge that I've definitely gained and the people that I've met through the context of my investments on the angel side.
100%. No, that makes a lot of sense. The last thing I'd love to ask you and kind of touch on is wrap this up, because you've been incredible with your time and all the value you've brought to this podcast episode is really the mindset. Obviously, you've given a ton of tactical things you can look for and characteristics that you can be aware of as you're looking at these CEOs or whatever. But like, I want to know more about your mindset as you go into this process. Obviously, there's something very unique about you, and I'm sure you're aware that you have a different kind of drive than most people. One, where do you think that comes from? And the second part B to that question is, how have you managed to continue that mindset, navigating all of these new things that have come into your life?
I definitely understand the nature of the amount of responsibility I put on myself, and that has now become a big motivator for me. It honestly wasn't previously because I didn't have that, right? When you're on YouTube, it's like yeah, it's great to have a successful channel, but if the channel falls off, the channel falls off, and that's my problem. And it is what it is. I had 2, 3 employees. I had an editor, I had an assistant, and and those people were always going to be taken care of. And so I wasn't worried about it. Like now, I mean, we have over 20 people on our monthly payroll. And so it's like, there's a lot of responsibility there, you know what I mean? And so that's really motivating to me. And then even more so than that, I look at it like for everyone that does join kind of our team, it's like they're sacrificing other job opportunities. I mean, we're hiring really bright young people. And so they have the opportunity to go work at a Fortune 500 company. They have the opportunity to go, start their own business if they wanted, if they're entrepreneurial, right? Like they have so many things at their disposal and they're choosing this. And so to me, in a smaller sense, they're also choosing me. And that's how at least that's how I justify it to myself. Like I'm a really competitive person. And so I try to make competition out of nothing. And I probably create competition for myself when it really doesn't exist. Like, and not in the context of like, I don't look at other marketing agencies like, oh, I want to be bigger than this agency by this time. I don't honestly, frankly, give any sort of shit about any other agency. I more so look at it like, man, like if we really up our shit and we can pay everyone 25% more by next year, like that's really exciting to me. And like, I want to be competitive about trying to like make something like that happen. Right. Like I want to be competitive about like getting a bigger client than we've ever had before and then getting super competitive about killing it for them better than we've ever killed it for a client before. Because like, and it's just kind of this snowball effect of like half competing against myself, half competing also now. I think another thing for me is like, I now feel like there's a different level of expectation placed upon me. And so whether it be from, the people at Enclave, our clients, our talent, like whoever it is, like I feel like as weird as it may sound, like I feel like I get asked for stuff a lot, both me personally and honestly, I feel like probably everyone at Enclave feels the same. Like I feel like that's an agency thing, not so much a self thing, but I feel like we get asked a lot. And it's kind of one of those things where it's definitely overwhelming at times. And I'm not going to say that it's not. I think that'd be bullshit if I said it's not. But at the same time, like where it stops being overwhelming and it starts getting really exciting is it kind of goes back twice about Mykonos. It's like, well, why is this happening? It's like, you chose this, like if I'll give a perfect example.
It's facts.
I got really, really frustrated with something that was happening that I was like supposed to deal with. But like, it was one of those things where I was just like, I didn't start this business so I would have to deal with crap like this. Like, I'm just not going to do it, and it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not saying I'm defaulting to getting lazy on things, but it's just like, I do feel like the nice thing about, and really the thing that I kind of lean heavily on with my mindset, whenever I'm the most upset, whenever I'm the most frustrated, stressed out, whatever it is, it's like, unless I'm going to sit here and be mad at myself, which I honestly don't do very often, like there's nowhere else to go. Like I chose this. I could have stayed in school. I could have started a different business. I could have stuck with YouTube. I could have stuck with reselling sneakers. I could have gotten a regular job. There's so many, I could have done anything. Everyone in the world, I believe, can do every and anything. And so I guess that's also something about my mindset. Like, and I would say I don't mean for it, but I guess I don't overly care how it comes across. It's just the truth. Like I definitely feel like someone who can accomplish whatever they set their mind to. And I would also say that I've failed a bunch. So it's like, it definitely is a double-edged sword, but it's like, I'm just convinced when I come up with an idea that like, whatever it takes, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And we're going to pivot 18 times. We're going to invest more money than we thought it was going to take. We're going to spend more time trying to build it, but ultimately like it's going to work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But the whole time I'm operating as if A, it's a given that it's going to work. And B, I'm operating as if it's already worked. So that way, assuming it does, I don't then have to change the way I'm doing it. You just continue it, right? Like when I was doing YouTube, like I was creating videos as if I had 10 million followers when I had 10 followers. Because I was like, if I ever have 10 million, the content I want to be consistent. I don't want it to seem like I was total shit and then randomly figured out how to get it together. Granted, there's constant improvement, but at the time that I was making videos on iMovie with a camcorder that was 8 years old, like I thought I was doing as best quality as I could. And I was, right? And then when I hired, my first editor, who was like my 14-year-old friend, I was like, well, now I got an editor. Like now I'm doing the best I can do. And then it turned into like actual professional quality editing, and my content all of a sudden got way better. And it's like, all right, like did what I could while I could. And so for me, I think the biggest thing that I think about when it comes to mindset is I think the more you can control your mind and your mindset, the better off you probably are going to be in life. Like, I think if you can literally like get mad and then sit there quietly for 5 minutes and then like genuinely be happy, that is a ridiculous strength. Like if you can almost like fool yourself into feeling dramatically differently after 5 minutes of reflection, I think you can probably do anything you put your mind to, because clearly your mind is really powerful. Right. And so Mykonos, that trip I took a month ago, I think really was big for me for that, because as small as those two things may sound, it was truly an eye-opening experience for me. But I mean, yeah, like my whole life, like I remember, you know, there'd be days where like I was always really into like my numbers and stuff. And so like I remember on YouTube, there'd be days like my average was always like I always wanted to gain 500 subscribers a day. If I gained 500 subscribers, I kept myself on a really healthy trajectory. And I remember there'd be a Wednesday where I'd gain 212 subscribers, and I'd come home and like literally, and I was like 15 or 16, I guess at the time. And like, I'm pissed. Like, I'm pissed. Like, I'm really competitive. Like, I'm not pissed. Like I'm grateful as a whole, but I'm pissed that like, from that competitive spirit. My mom's like, Blake, you remember the first 30 days of this shit when you couldn't even get 100 total and you're mad that you gained 200? I'm like, I get it. But when I'm 16, my mom gave me advice. It's like, I don't want to hear your advice. Like, right. I'm in weird teenage. Like, I don't like what you say doesn't count as much right now because I'm 16. And it's like, now in retrospect, I think about that and I'm like, man, like that was one of the neatest things ever. 200 people in one day decided that they liked my mini TV show that I was creating by myself at 16, while 16, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, I think the balance of mindset and perspective is just one of those things that once you figure out how to somewhat hone it in, you can become incredibly, incredibly capable.
That's so good. I love that. And I think that's what it all boils down to. So, dude, this has been a really, really fun episode. Like I said, can't thank you enough for doing this. And I've personally learned a lot. I know our community is going to be excited about this episode, and just really excited about everything you're working on and doing and the impact you're making. And I really appreciate you coming on the AIM podcast. No,
absolutely. The last thing I'll say, I know everyone's like, what's that one piece of advice or anything that you become known for? I'll definitely, you know, it was the biggest lesson I ever got from my uncle. Who has done business at the highest level. And it's like I said, it's okay to have all your eggs in one basket. Just watch the fucking basket. You know what I mean? Like, and everything else will take care of itself. I think people overhype being cautious and diversification, all these kind of buzzwords that people talk about with investing. I think a lot of it's kind of BS. I mean, I think it's good if you're just getting your feet wet to diversify and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you have the desire to be an entrepreneur and you feel like you're missing out because you're not doing enough with investing or you know, getting a job or parents' expectations or whatever it may be, put your eggs in your own basket and watch them. And I think you'll be just fine.
That's so good. And to be honest with you, like, I think a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things in life that we cannot control that are just simply out of our control. But I think that's an escape for a lot of people to make that excuse and say, oh, it's out of my control. There are a lot of things we can control. And the way we approach things mentally, the way we approach things with our work ethic, our mindset, like you're saying. And if you work hard enough, I truly believe it doesn't guarantee success, but I've, at least in my life, I've seen it give you a lot better chance of succeeding. And I think that's something you have to take into consideration as you go through these things. And if there's something you truly want to do or you truly believe in and you're gonna go all in on it, you go all in on it and go do it. Because I think you can definitely do it with the right mindset. Yeah, I mean, I think actually, interestingly, this is actually a huge thing that has really changed. It was the first big thing that really changed my mindset when I was much younger. It was a lesson my mom taught me. I was like 14 years old. And I was just having one of those days that you're just not happy with your business. And she says to me, you know, why are you happy? Oh, we're not, you know, it's not growing. I don't remember exactly why I was upset, but remember she says to me, she says, Blake, there's 8 billion people in the world. But she says, you know, the interesting thing is for how hard you work, you're only competing against a couple million people.
you're not competing against the whole world. Because 99% of the world is already weeded out from the fact that they don't try as hard as you. And now you factor in, like, you're lucky enough to be American, you're lucky enough to have gotten a proper education, you're lucky enough to, be passionate about something. I think that's something that people are like, oh, it's hard to find your passion. It's like, it's hard to find a passion, because to me, it's like, I never even found a passion. Like I was like wired this way, and I feel lucky to have been wired this way. But I do think that it's got to be very, very hard to live life without exercising on something that you're very passionate about. It gets very repetitive. It gets very boring. And, there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people do it, but it is what it is. And so I think for someone out there who feels really confident in their ability to do something, but they're a little worried because it's like, well, how am I going to start my clothing brand when there's 10 million clothing brands? It's like the same way that like Louis Vuitton did it in 1900, or the same way that even, thinking about now, you think about Virgil Abloh, like he didn't exist as far as the world was concerned 10 years ago, but he clearly worked harder and smarter than everybody for a pretty substantial period of time. And he kind of got first place. And so he became Virgil, and he became Off-White, and he became Louis Vuitton, he became all these great things. Like, if you are that comfortable with your own mindset and capabilities, I don't think you should feel like you're taking on the whole world. Like, to me, I look at it now, like, and I'm probably way off on this, but I look at it like I'm really, like, personally competing with a couple thousand people probably at this point, running a business the way that we run it, and kind of at the level that we're at now. Like, I'm not competing against, a college kid who's pitching his professor on his marketing agency. Like, I wish that person good luck. Nothing wrong with it, but I don't look at that as competition. And if he one day makes it so it is, then, or she, right? Like, kudos to them, because they went faster than I did, and I definitely tried going fast. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think people should remove a little bit of the stigma that I think is often placed on people, that like, it is so hard to do this. Like, it is really hard, but the hard part is what you're willing to put in, not actually being successful. That is the difference in whether or not you're going to be successful or not.
You think people are born that way, or do you think that's something that people develop through experience?
I feel like I probably talk people out of starting their own business more than the normal entrepreneur by a lot, from the standpoint that, like, it is an incredibly abnormal way to live. You're taking greater financial risk on a 24/7, 365 basis than anyone in the world would ever suggest that anybody does. If you become successful as an entrepreneur, you then fall into the second side of that trap, which is like what I said, like the having all your eggs in one basket thing. It's like, truthfully, like, no matter how successful most of my investments are, the large majority of my net worth is probably always going to be tied up in my own business, because I'm going to own the large percent of it. And if it's successful, then it works. And if it's not, then maybe not. But, so I think from that perspective is something I think having the responsibility of a workforce and of clients and of developing a product or whatever it is that you're doing, it is a lot. I think that if you're starting a business to earn money, you have absolutely zero chance. Like, I don't believe for a second you have any sort of chance if you're starting for the sake of making money, because if you're starting for the sake of making money, you have those three, like I said, I didn't pay myself for 3 years. It's like, for 3 years, I asked myself, man, I could probably go get a job and get paid really well at this point. I have a great network. I have a great marketing understanding. I come from a good background. Like, I could probably go get a $200,000 a year job right now. Like, it's nothing. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here for the last 3 years working 16-hour days instead of these 8-hour days that I could have been working for 200 grand, and I'm earning zero, right? But to me, I look at it like, to get very specific as to why I believe that, I think that I and most entrepreneurs have a different wiring when it comes to opportunity cost, right? Like, the amount of times I'll hear people want to start a business, but they don't because they have a good job. Like, my mind, I couldn't even explain to them the way my mind works in comparison to theirs, because I'll be sitting there thinking, like, how do you look at that as the opportunity? If you believe in what you're starting, like, this sucks, like, right? Like, it's the whole, like, that's what you're getting paid to believe that you're not capable. And so, or believe that you're safe and, not take that risk. I think that, yeah, I think there's a lot of truly, like, abnormal behaviors required to be a successful entrepreneur. And I don't think they're learnable. And I don't think you'd want to learn them. Like, people have made entrepreneurship like a new form of celebrity, which I find like super bizarre. right? Like people like Gary Vee, people like Ty Lopez think they do great stuff. Like they've made entrepreneurship celebrity, right? Elon's, Buffett, people like my uncle aren't really celebrities because they were in a different era. But, like a lot of these top business folks have become celebrities. Bezos, it's like he like the, you see him on blogs and stuff. I mean, you want him on your podcast. Like he's a celeb, like no different than Billie Eilish or something like that, right? And it's like, but now you have people that want to start businesses kind of for that. And it's like another really stupid thought, in my opinion. Like you don't become a celebrity starting a business. And if you do, it's only because you started one of the best of all time. And so if that's what you're competing against, then your mind shouldn't be, how do I become a celebrity? Your mind should be, how do I start and or build something that will be the best all time at what it does, right? Like I feel like one day, and I could be way wrong on this, I think one day, I think not even just me, I think a number of people that are at Enclave are going to have celebrity status in the business world from the standpoint that it's like, oh, you're C-level at Enclave, right? Like the same way that if you're COO of CAA right now, like that's a big deal. Like you might not be Gary Vaynerchuk, but you're pretty known, right? Like you know who these guys are. You know who Drew Rosenhaus is, for example, right? Like he's the best at what he does. So you become known, and also too, like I mean, I'll even say personally, like that is like honestly like an anti-desire of mine. Like it's one of those things that I embrace a lot right now. But truthfully, one of the biggest reasons I stopped YouTube was like, man, I would not want that kind of lifestyle if I had kids. You know what I mean? Like, because I look at it like when I'm a dad, like everything is going to get turned off and it's all about the kid now. Because like I want what I didn't necessarily have from my dad growing up. And so a lot of it for me right now, truthfully, like probably like my biggest motivation in a long-term sense is like, I want to be able to provide a life for like, not even just my family, but like my family and my friends. And when I say friends, like the people, like every single person that works at Enclave is like a really close friend of mine, I would say at this point. Like I eat, sleep, and breathe this business. And so the people that do too are like my closest friends, a handful of people who were there for me, like growing up, and then like my family, like out, and then like my, future family, like outside of that, like I'm good, like I think that that's important to know too, is like, what are you actually doing all this for in the first place? Right. Like you may have the ability to go start a great business, but like, why are you doing it? Like, why are you actually signing yourself up for that? Right. Like you may be a fantastic investment banker, but if you've always loved painting, like why the hell are you signing yourself up to be a banker? What happens if you die on a plane crash in 2 weeks? Right. If you die on that plane crash, you're going to be going down. And one of your last thoughts might be like, I wish I'd just fucking painted my whole life. Like that to me would be like, that is like, honestly, for me, it's actually fear driven. Like truthfully, my biggest fear in life is if God forbid something happened to me, like, whatever, and I were to die early, that in the process of dying, something entered my mind in one of my last moments and it was a regret. Like that, and not even just a regret, but like I wish I had blank. Like that fear, like seriously, when I'm tired at 11, but I know I have 3 more emails, like I think to myself, like if something happens tomorrow, you're going to feel maybe bad for not having done this, like fucking do it. Same way that like I'm at the point now in my life where I'm taking a week off of business to go explore the world a little bit. Like I did it with that Greece trip. It's like there's balance to it. And I'm starting to try and add some balance to my life because I have had none for the last 5 or 6 years. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think you just need to understand your own mind to be successful. And I think once you understand it, I think it's inevitable that you'll be successful.
That's powerful, man. It's super good. I love that. I think the last thing I'll say on this, and it's interesting, like there's certain people that have a desire, internal, just passion, something like a fire inside of them, that whatever their driver is, and mentally they can connect that desire and they're like, I'm locked in, I'm going to go do it. But what's interesting to me is there's a lot of people out there that face this dilemma of like, yes, I have this passion, desire, fire, that I see this vision, I can mentally see where it's going to go. But the way to get there, or at least like the first phase of that trajectory is like honestly extremely scary to me. And even on top of that is I think you see some people just have a really great skill set and they get looped into, working a traditional job or doing something that they're very qualified to do, and it becomes comfortable and it becomes satisfying, but it's not truly fulfilling that deep passion or desire, and it delays their, you know, opportunity to get to where they're truly going. So I think that's something that is pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, and I mean, like truthfully, like I advise almost everybody, like build that life for yourself. Just build it in the context of having a job. I really don't like, to me, like being an entrepreneur is a job. It's just a job that requires more hours and pays less. So like I do kind of, suggest that people find that for them in the job. What I just more so say is, like, I literally, this example is what's happening with a lot of my close friends now. It's like they went to school for finance, so now they got these, they got these investment banking jobs, they got these, analysis jobs, I mean, sales, whatever it is. But it's like, but what would they really want to do? Like, they really want to work at like a sports team. I'm like, so go work at the freaking sports team. Okay, so you get paid $30,000 a year less, but like, are you telling me right now that if I told you, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal, I'll pay you 30 grand to hate your life for the next 12 months? Like, are you really going to do that? And if so, you are honestly way too fucking consumed by money to have any sort of chance of being happy in life ever, no matter what. So at that point, do what you want. This is honestly like how I look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like people look at it like becoming an entrepreneur gives you the ability to have the freedom to control your own life. I look at it like you have less control of your own life compared to anybody if you choose to be an entrepreneur, from how many people that you have to answer to, you're responsible for, and how much pressure and life, balance you have to put on yourself to maintain. Like, I don't know. I have a very, I don't want to say glasses half empty outlook on entrepreneurship. I just look at it like, I look at it almost similar like being a professional athlete. Like, yeah, it requires a lot of work, but you're born being 6'8" and a freak of absolute nature. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Born with your mind being wired a certain way, but you still got to work really, really hard at it every day. And if you take days off, like, you fall out of shape, right? Like, that's all real shit with being an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, I definitely am not the kind of person that's like, yeah, start it if that's what you want to do. Like start it if that's what you're willing to eat, sleep, and breathe for the next couple of years and make no money doing it. Then
No
start.
doubt. Yeah, that's facts. And I think, like you said, the tricky dilemma is that our society is like idolize guys like Gary Vee, who on the hour looking in, like, yeah, looks sick, his lifestyle is amazing, whatever. But like you're saying, like the process to get to that point is extremely gruesome. And if you don't truly love it, like you're gonna fail. You're gonna burn out. There's no shot.
I'll tell you what about Gary specifically. It's not even about what it takes to get there. Like, it just gets more and more as you grow. Like,
Yeah.
we just helped throw David Dobrik's birthday party for him in LA last Saturday. A bunch of our mutual friends were there, and Gary wants to be cool, so Gary came. The party was from 5 to 12. Gary showed up at like 11:58. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, people are like literally, like, we're like, all right, everyone, like, kind of get out. Like, it's David's house, and Gary's like walking in, and it's like one of those things where it's like he literally was fucking busy until 11:55 p.m. Like, busy for David Dobrik's birthday with 150 of the most popular kids running around in the world. You know what I mean? Like, you name them, they were there as far as influencers go. And it's, it's just, it's interesting to still see. And it's like, that is what it takes. And honestly, he, compared to the average CEO, probably has to work a little less hard than them. I'm not just being honest, because he's not publicly traded, number one.
Yep.
And number two, because of that kind of celebrity aspect, he has so much to do as a celebrity that I'm sure he's had to allocate a lot of his, VaynerMedia and kind of his own business responsibilities to, like probably COO, president, folks like, and down the pole you go from there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, I mean, to me, these people have it the easiest of CEOs that are running billion-dollar companies, and they still have it really freaking hard.
Yeah. No, that's right, dude. Well, this has been a fun one. The last question I have for you, wrapping this up, man, where are you headed? What's your goal? What's your North Star? And how are you going to get there?
Honestly, like I said, like, I don't have, truthfully, like, ridiculously, it's hard, right? Because it's like, I don't really consider things goals. I consider things like, where are we going? Like, I do look at it like, I really believe that we're laying the foundation and continuing to build what will one day be considered like not even necessarily the greatest marketing agency in the world, but like the nucleus of the world's best and brightest, like a global, like I almost think of it as like the NATO of business that we're building in a sense, not to get political. I forget NATO, but like this culmination of global leaders, like everyone from politicians, founders, CEOs, athletes, celebrities, like what brings everyone together, I think will be Enclave. And I think that's where our branding comes in, right? It's like, that's what makes sense to have be the ultimate kind of North Star goal, like to be one of those things where it's like, if you need something done in the context of business and you're at the highest level, you go to Enclave because they can probably introduce you the right person or point in the right direction and help you execute exactly what your overly ambitious project is. Like, because to me, I look at it like, I want to have our hand in everything the same way that I like angel investing. I like getting our hands wet, right? So it's, to me, it's like, I hope that one day we've got our hand in space exploration. We've got our hand in, you know, politics, I would say is definitely something. Our hand in sports, but at the level of like league offices and things like that, like, you know, in the hand of celebrities, but you know, at A-list level and you know, production, the level of like winning, you know, awards for original films that we may make. Like, I just look at it like, I want to be at the highest level in everything. And I think that Enclave is very much so built and designed to be valuable to all of those sorts of people. And so I think that's where we're going. On a personal sense, like I said, I really, really care about like being over the top there for my kid, which is kind of why I don't feel like I maybe have to like, yeah, I want to be on the Force 400 or yeah, I want to, you know, like honestly, like I'm not even gonna lie, like there is that part of me in my head that's like, I feel like at the end of my life, I'd like to be able to stack my career up against my uncles and win. Because again, like I said, I'm competitive, but it's a pretty micro goal. Like, because the reality is like, I also look at it like, I want to stack up my ability as a father to him when I die. And I want to stack up a lot more than just like, how much money did I have in my bank account? And also like, I don't like a lot of what we do. Like, I don't like, this is not a business where like, I'm going to become a billionaire off of it or anyone. It's one of those businesses that's going to help lots of other people, I think, become billionaires. And that to me is really cool. Like I look at it like we're enablers, right? Like we're really good marketers. So in essence, we're enabling businesses to get themselves out there more through the context of the best storytellers in the world being celebrities, or, you know, the best PR outlets in the world being, you know, contacts that we have, you know, completely in-house. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I don't think I probably have as large of business ambitions as you would maybe expect, I suppose, but definitely like the next 10 years of my life, I just want to floor it and see where we end up, I guess.
A lot of respect for you, bro. Seriously, man, that's good stuff. And like I said, I appreciate this. I think this is just the beginning, and dude, there's nothing stopping you, bro. Keep going and keep crushing it. And I really do appreciate you coming on this podcast.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. I'll have to send some more guests your way with much better stories than I have and more. But no, man, it's been great getting to know you. And you know, like really, really grateful that you know, took the time to ask me to be on the pod.
Let's go, man. Well, I appreciate it. This has been a fun one.
Cool, man. Thanks.